Let's have a look at some of the new style of reporting. So this is what we would call an interactive online report. And this particular one is obviously for Cat 4. And we can see from this lovely purple colour that this is a Cat 4 level E, because that is the colouring that responds to that particular level. If we ran that as a level F or a level G, for example, the colouring would change, and so would the header colours here. Okay, so we can see that this is a Year 8 Cat 4 second sitting. That's the title that was given by the user as they created this report. So that's the title that appears as the most prominent one. And then under here, we've got some information about the parameters of the report. So we can see which school it relates to, the date range that they've set, the level of the report, and the number of students. And this particular report is an ISRT, or an individual student report for teachers. So on the left of every ISRT, or individual student report for teachers, we get what's called the student pane. And on the right-hand side, we get the main pane, or the reporting pane. If we look to the student pane for a moment, it arrives with all of the students who've been included in the report listed in alphabetical order by surname. And we can see here that there are 14 students in this particular report. If I open this up, we've got some parameters that we can work with to reorder those students and the list order that they appear in within the report after we've run it. So it defaults to surname alphabetically, but perhaps we want to look at people with a low verbal SAS as our main focus for this particular use of the report. So if I click on here, you can see that the information up in the student pane is going to change. And as I flick around onto the different students, we'll see that information change there. So moving over to the right-hand side, the student name is obviously prominent, and next to that we get some information about the student themselves, so the student number, gender, age, and so on. And that information is relevant to whatever the type of test is. So this is the Cat 4 information, and as I open the student bar, this information that appears in the headers is specific to Cat 4. If we were running a different product report, if we're running for, say, an NGRT or for a PASS or PT series, the headers there that would change to reflect the importance within the report of different categories. So if I click here, you can see I can open just one section of the report if that's the piece I'm interested in, or I can choose to expand the entire thing. If I open just the scores section, that obviously relates to Louise. If I move here to Ria, we'll see that information change and the score information change, but we're still only highlighting the scores information because that's all that we've got open. Because it's an interactive report, we can also offer some extra features like, for example, some hover text. So if we hover or click over SAS, we're going to see a little bit of extra information that tells us what that SAS means and some definitions for it. And this format of the student pane on the left and the main reporting pane on the right-hand side is going to be true for any of the reports within our suite that begin with an I. So individual student report for teachers, individual student report for students, and individual student report for parents, ISRP, IRS, and ISRT all appear with this student list on the left and the main pane results on the right. If I can switch this for a moment to a group report. So you can see that this is really similar. This is the ISRT version, the individual student report for teachers version. This is a GRT or group report version. So we're still working with Cat 4 and we're still working with Level E. On this occasion, though, rather than asking for an ISRT, we've asked for a GRT, a group report for teachers. So we use the entire main pane now for this group. There aren't any concept of individual students within a group report, and so we don't see that student pane on the left anymore. If I can illustrate here, we can still do opening just one section, or we can choose to expand all and see the entire report from beginning to end. The table at the top here has got a number of interactive features. So, for example, we can switch between different elements of the table scores at the end here, depending on which piece means something to us. As I hover over these headers, you're also going to see little arrows appear next to it, which indicate that all of the content within there can be sorted in ascending or descending order. And again, this is intended to allow people to use the information once they've run the report to whatever end is required. So if, again, we're looking for people with a particularly low verbal SAS, we can see it within a group context there, and we'll see the same order come up as we did in our individual student report for teachers. If I scroll a little further down, we can see some of our fairly standard charts. If I look here, though, we can see extra information as we hover. So there are some tool tips that we can offer on the interactive reports that weren't possible on the PDFs. If I come a little further down, you can see one of our scatter charts, which is one of the more popular parts of our reports in the PDF. Because it's interactive, we've got a little bit more functionality. We can zoom in, we can say that we just want to look at the female respondents, or we can say we just want to look at the male ones. I can also choose to focus a little bit more on people who've maybe got a bias that I'm interested in. So if I fade some of this away, we can start to see people on maybe more extreme ends of the scoring spectrum. And as I hover over there, we can see some information about who it is that dot relates to, and also which spatial or verbal bias they've been given, and the scores and their SAS scores. And if I zoom back out on here, you can see that it remembers what I've done in the close-up. Finally, if we look at a table like this, where we are talking about different bias models, you can see that our students have been allocated throughout depending on what their scores are, and we get an understanding of kind of within the group what percentage have scored what in terms of those biases. We can also look on underneath each of these to see a bit more detail about who actually is involved there. So if we look at extreme spatial bias, for example, our students, Matthew, Ria and Louise, are shown to be the students in question. Then there's a little bit of narrative about the best way to help and to teach students with those particular biases. Then very quickly, I just want to move on to a PASS report. So very similar format. School logo at the top, we can see that it's passed. We can see the colouring reflects that it's passed now. We've still got all of our report information at the top. It's a group report, so there's no student pane on the side. And if I press expand all, we're going to see the tables and the information that we are used to seeing. And again, we're seeing that with the hover, we get a little bit more information, a little bit of pop-up information comes up there. The piece that I really wanted to highlight on here is the item level analysis. So for the PASS reports, you actually get an item level analysis, a question by question breakdown of how the entire cohort answered the questions. And again, this is quite common across the new HTML reports. If you hover on there, you're going to see, first of all, the question. So we understand now that question 37, which is one which is scored a little bit low on this particular one, we get into trouble during recess or lunch times, which tells me that we've got the American filter on because it's calling it recess. We also get some highlighting so that we can see exactly that it's question 37 that we've clicked on, and the rest of it has faded away a little piece. So there are a number of features in there helping you to interpret your data. Again, here we have the sort functionality. There's only two lines on there, so maybe not so useful here, but you can imagine with a large table, really useful ability to sort into ascending and descending order on all of these fields. And that again is standard across all of our reports.